Welcome to this week's episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm the host, Eric Bishop. This is a place where interesting people come to share their stories. I hope you'll support tonight's guest. As for myself, I'm a father, author, travel enthusiast, and lover of the outdoors. If you'd like to see some of my creative works, my novels, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks for joining us tonight, and enjoy the journey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, your eyes and ears are not deceiving you. Eric, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to allow me to take over A Tale of Two Scribes yet again. Apparently, he did not learn his lesson the first time. But since he does have another book out, it seems to make the most sense to allow somebody else to take over the hosting duties, so that way we can put him in the hot seat and, pick his brain for everything that is Drexel. All right, are you ready, Eric?
Males don't learn very well, so, we like to make the same mistake multiple times. So it's all good, I'm sure it'll be better. It's always good.
No. Oh, I have a lengthy list of things that are meant to be like absolute stump you questions. So this is just going to be a painful experience for you.
Hold on, what's this book about? I'm serious. I'm writing another one now and started a one after that. So Drexel. I think it's book 3 in the Omega Group series, and some stuff happens, and they don't always all live in happy ever at the end. So yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, you're good. You're good. You got the broad strokes. That's all we need. But no, seriously, this is your third Omega Group book. But I mean, it's an origin story, but it is the third book that you've put out for the Omega Group. How's that feel?
Pretty exciting. And this one in particular, not that the first two didn't feel good. This one, though, had the origins and really was the second novel I completed. Had a different title at the time, changed stuff around. So this one, in a way, was kind of a full circle to go back in those moments of, and I kind of felt the feelings I was editing it, of like that excitement of this is so new and you don't know what you're doing, which is good and bad. But to me, Troy was that character I wanted to write for so many years. So to kind of get his introduction back, since we gave hints of things about him in Ransom Daughter and also Babylon Will Rise, it felt like it was appropriate, since I set him up as the main protagonist, to say, well, here's why he is what he is. And that's where Drexel basically kind of fills in that gap of, this is Troy Evans and why his life was changed, because he was destined to follow his dad. His dad was a special agent in charge of a field office. Troy had every intention from when he was a kid to follow his dad and actually get even further along in a career than his dad did. And then the events that take place in college are the events in the book Drexel.
I mean, there's a couple of different things I want to hone in on there. But first, we did get little snippets at, who Troy is outside the Omega Group. I mean, obviously he's team lead. We see him in action. We know how he interacts with his colleagues. But as far as his personal life goes, we just got some kind of nebulous references to his past. And after I finished Drexel, I went back to Ransom Daughter and started flipping through, trying to, put everything in context again. But more than that, it wasn't just about Troy. It was about, Matt Evans. It was literally, it was a full-fledged, I guess I would say, not entourage. What's the word? I am just blanking out. Where you have a whole cast of characters. It isn't just your ensemble.
Ensemble.
There we go.
Come on.
It was a full ensemble, and that kind of seems like it's become your signature. You have your protagonist, but you really write ensemble stories.
Yeah. I think part of that is I was such a voracious reader for so long, and I read so many series that were one protagonist, and there was other people in the stories, but take it back to like a story like Tom Clancy would do, where you've got a Jack Ryan character. Might be a bad example because there are lots of others, but Jack is your character. And Troy definitely is the main character in the first few, but it's heavy in this one. But I always wanted to write stories that kind of like, hey, here's these other people, and then It's like what I'm going to do with the Body Man series, and kind of what I did with book 3 in the Body Man for Supreme Justice. I gave Merci her spotlight. Where did she come from? Why is this attractive, very physically fit and mentally strong woman? Why is she killing people? If besides being a
Because
psychopath,
it's
there's got to be
fun.
a reason behind it. So I like the fact that I can take those minor characters and make them major characters. And same thing really for the Omega Group stories. Is I think I wrote like the Jackal. The Jackal will have his own book. I don't know when it will be. I don't have it completely planned out, but he was one of those characters that people really enjoyed in the first 2 books. So I like those ensembles because again, they get real predictable if you have one main character. Um, you think of what Vince Flynn did, Mitch Rapp, and I grew up reading Mitch Rapp, and that's one of the reasons I got into it. But as the years went on, I had trouble reading the stories because when you read page 1 and Mitch is, wherever he is doing something, well, he's going to be on the last page too. He's going to be beaten around and battered, but Vince or then Kyle after took over, and I think Don's got it now. They probably got a 2 or 4 book deal, so Mitch Rapp's not going to die. I like the idea of, the body man stuff, especially. Yeah, I mean, the body man might have expiration date, and I might be the only one to know what that expiration date is. And that's okay, because if I've set up other things in place, you can bring someone else in, and it might not work. Audience might not like it. That's okay. I'm willing to take those risks.
Nick Jordan will live forever. I'm throwing that out there right now. Otherwise, I will find you. But that is interesting though, because you have a unique voice now that you've created with this. Because if you had
Mhm.
gone traditional publishing with this, where as in somebody in the big publishing houses gets to dictate to you how your story should be structured,
Yeah.
you'd probably have a battle because you are
I
kind
don't
of
think I would have had my books
bucking
out.
the norms.
Yeah, I don't think they would have let me put them out. And not to be callous about it, but I don't do this because I want to please some executive in New York or some other city. These are the stories I enjoy telling, and if an audience relates to them and an audience gives me positive reviews, I could care less if a publisher wants it. And I'd love to have a publishing deal. I'm not stupid. I'd like it more though from the sense of a distribution standpoint. Like I'd like to have the books. And I'm also not, it's not an arrogance thing that, oh, no one could possibly give me any good ideas of, well, this doesn't work or that doesn't work. Not at all the case, but I've heard stories of people getting like, "Hey, you can't do this." Good example, and I interviewed him, and he said it on camera. Is Kyle Mills? So Kyle, did the Vince Flynn books, and he did almost as many books for the Flynn estate as Vince had wrote. Um, when he decided he had enough and he said, "Hey, we're going to go back to this my character Fade," and he started. I was assuming that guy would have like multiple houses be like, "Yo, we want you. You're a number one," and he was a number one New York Times bestseller before the Vince Flynn books. So not just that series made him that. I figured they'd fall over themselves. No, he even said one of the places said, "Why don't we make Fade like a cyborg, kind of like weird?" And you're just like, yo, who's the dumbass over here in the publishing world that's telling me to make my character a cyborg? It's like, so I don't want to have to, and I'm not saying I never will deal with that, but where I am right now, I'm good if I'm doing stuff through my own press and I get to tell my stories, not tell a variation of my story because too many people said that's not going to sell. You can't do Supreme Justice and have a book that focuses on a minor character and then also do little snippets of what the next book's going to be. I think
Yep.
they would have shot that idea down. I've had almost completely positive responses to that, and I didn't know if I was going to, but I felt like I can take the risk. This. I don't do this to put food on the table to feed my family. I have a great paying job. This is my passion and my love, so I get to kind of, to some degree, put it out the way I feel comfortable.
Well, but on the flip side of that, you have now you've created not just your voice and the characters and the way you write, but your own style, and it
Sure.
does stand out because of that.
Yeah.
Some I can pick up something that you have written, and within a couple of chapters, I can pick up. Oh yeah, Eric Bishop wrote this, and it's
This
just
sounds dumb. I think Eric wrote this line.
yep,
Look at this.
absolutely. It's ridiculous. But no, and I mean that very complimentary.
Thank
Now,
you.
is it going to be everybody's cup of tea? No, because a lot of people really do, like we were talking about before we started recording, they need structure. They crave the structure. They want the predictability. But in the thriller verse, we don't want the predictability because
Right.
that's what we want to be surprised again. And because we're all, well, we're all thriller writers and we think really crazy thoughts, it's hard to surprise as usual. But so you change the structure, you change the narrative format, and you give multiple characters agency. And that opens up the aperture to do all kinds of stuff. And
Yeah.
it's fun to read.
Yeah, you create your own world, and that was always my intention of doing this, is I don't want to it's not completely planned out. I had someone ask me recently, like with the Omega Group books, one of the other interviews I did, they're like, how much do you have planned out? And I said, well, when I originally started writing the first novel, which was called Vengeance, I planned 7 books. And I wrote, I didn't do like Jack Carr executive summary, but I did a paragraph for each book, title and everything. And when I went to pitch it at Thriller Fest, which I guess was 2017, I think that was the first time I went to Thriller Fest. Um, I had some warm reception from some of the agents, but I remember this one agent, and up until a couple years ago, I could have even told you his name. And I can't now. It doesn't, I have pushed that information out. But he questioned me. It was like, and I think he worded it kind of like, how dare you think you can write, you haven't even, you've completed one novel. How dare you think you can do 7 in this series and have it planned out? And I was like, how could I not? Like, if I'm planning a series, how would I not? And the way he worded it, of course, the way he worded it, I was just kind of like, you're a dick, man. I wouldn't want you to hire, I wouldn't want to be represented by you anyways. Thank you for denying. And he was the only person, like, out of 15 agents that he was like, no, don't send me a sample. And I'm like, good. I don't want to say. He rubbed me wrong, but I was like, the way he said it, I'm like, how do you go into this thing? And if you're thinking you're going to write a series, how do you go into it saying, I'll write book 1. I have no clue where I'm going to go after that. It's like, that's not how the publishing world works. Maybe, yeah, you only come up with 2 or 3 because things are going to change. I get it. But at the time, I thought through enough of the Troy Evans story arc and he was only going to be with the Omega Group very short, a very brief thing in my original arc of stuff. I branched him out onto something, and I don't want to give too much away because I might actually do that in future. I might actually go back to that outline of what I was going to do, but it was wild to get that response because I was like, "Isn't that normal? Don't you normally people pitching you an idea and
You
they've
would think.
but I guess not 7. Maybe the 7. Maybe he was anti, God's perfect number or something. I don't know. Who knows what the guy's problem was?
That
Atheist. That atheist
no,
agent.
no.
That's
Hey, maybe you're right. Maybe it just you got you dodged a bullet. There
yeah.
was the one person that if you had been with, you would have been miserable. Clearly,
Right.
because you definitely would have clashed.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Well, and the other thing too, and I've told this to people, is what are you getting into this for? Some people, if you talk to them, they're like, I got to get an agent. And yeah, if you want to go traditional publishing, you're going to have an agent. I know a bunch of people that have agents that have never published a book, and some of those people have had agents for 5 or 6 or 7 years. They go out on sub and nothing happens, and they go, "Man, this was the best book I wrote." It goes out for 18 months and nothing happens, and they have to submit another book, and before you know it, 4 years has passed, and you have 0 books published. And I was going down that path. I was on that path for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then it was just kind of like once I got the deal for the Body Man with someone that didn't require an agent, it kind of just changed my mindset of going, yeah, maybe I'll get an agent at some point, but do I have to have that to have validation? No, I don't.
no, and you're absolutely right. You're doing it your way. You have decided what works for you, and you found a methodology that works. You started your own imprint.
Just doesn't
Now,
give me that G650.
Not yet. Not yet. There's time. Hey, maybe it'll come with, book number 7, because you're in done 6 books now.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, are we going back to the Body Man for lucky number 7, or are you going to stay in the world of the Omega Group?
Yeah, we're in the Body Man Downfall, book number 7. So that's what I was
Okay.
teasing at the end of during Supreme Justice. Yeah, I'm not as heavily into it as I need to be because I've been kind of slacking the last couple. Well, the last couple weeks everything was about Drexel,
As it
so
should
I just
be.
had to prepare everything for that. So every night it wasn't like let's write Downfall. It was like, damn, I got to do marketing material. Oh, I got a podcast tonight. Oh, I got a radio in the morning. Good problem to have, not a complaint, but there's only so much, man. You've got your kids are younger than mine even. You got kids, you got a full-time
Hmm.
job, you got we're talking on a Saturday where they say we're having ice apocalypse here. I might not have
Snowpocalypse, yeah.
power in
Yeah.
24 hours. So life happens. So I've got my computer charged and I can go sit out in the car and warm the car and keep typing downfall. So I have no excuse not to write downfall this weekend, but you
We
know.
will hold you to it. But
Or
yeah,
I'll just download a bunch of stuff on Netflix on my phone and be able to just rot my brain while I'm, in sub-zero temperatures.
There you go. And you can continue to bask in the glow of Drexel coming out. I mean, it's getting some really great reviews. People are loving it. I enjoyed it.
Thank
I
you.
left you a review today, which of course, Amazon does that whole, we will review it first before they
I
post
will
it.
gladly look at it.
And don't worry, I gave you a whole 2 stars, and I was
Thank you.
very, very nice with my
Appreciate that.
review.
I know which button you press to tell Amazon, hey, this one's bull. You need to get rid of this one. Can you flag her account, her author account too? Because I think this is a
It's
high
shady,
spam.
shady as hell. But
No, yeah. No, so Downfall's next, and then I know we need to talk some more about the Drexel stuff, and I want to. The project after Downfall, and this is terrible to say because I'm writing a book and I'm excited and I'm enjoying writing Downfall. The one after it is the one that's kind of gotten my brain. And real quickly about that one, I'll say it was an idea that spawned from Breach of Trust. So when I was writing Breach of Trust and I was getting ready to submit
and you
it,
killed me.
yeah, when you did,
I
that was
inspired. So my death inspired you to do something great.
Death inspired me. So I think at the time before I submitted to the publisher, Adam Hamdy got a copy of it early on, and Adam's kind of my sounding board, or was especially back then for stuff. He's super busy now. He'll still read stuff for me, but I don't ask him very much anymore. But I was at that spot of second book, you have to really deliver. I got to deliver a better book, so I gave him an early copy of Breach of Trust. Very positive things about it, but he was like, you need to take this chapter, I think it was chapter 6. You need to take this chapter out and write something different. And I knew exactly what chapter he meant because it was like the body man was going through some trauma and he was kind of having a dream sequence of something terrible happening inside the White House. And I thought it was pretty brilliantly written if I don't say so myself. He's like, you got to take it out. And I'm like, damn, man, that's a good chapter. And so I called him, we started talking about it, and I was like, dude, I wrote something good there. He goes, that's the problem. It's gimmicky and it's throwaway in this book in this context. And I'm like, explain. He said, take that concept for the body man, go write another book about that event and make it happen, make it its own story, own character. He said, and I can almost guarantee you'll probably get your inroad into the church. He said, it's a high concept idea if you just change this part, which taking it away from the body man and making it its own thing. So I took it to heart. I finished Breach of Trust, got it submitted, then I had all the crap happen with the publisher. And in the meantime, I guess it's been two plus years ago, I wrote the first 10,000 words of that book. I won't give the title yet. I started writing it. And I even sent it to Adam, and he's like, you're on the right track. And I said, but I don't know where I want to go with it. So I put it aside. I put it aside for almost 2 years. Last year, while all the other ideas were floating in my head, I had that eureka moment of, aha, I know how to get from point A to point B. So I made real detailed notes and I even started writing on it a couple weeks ago. I pulled up the original document and started writing a little. I'm like, I can't. I got to go back to Downfall. So I'm gonna try to get back to that story April, May this year. I want to get a copy to Adam by September, October, and then if he's cool, likes how I pulled it together, I'll probably say, hey, can you get me to your agent? And I'll pull a couple other chains to say, can I talk to your agent? And I'll try to go traditional. And I'll try to go traditional for a while with that one if it's in a good spot, he believes in it. And then if not, I'll give it enough time. And if not, traditional publishing doesn't like it, or an agent doesn't like it, then maybe I'll just do it on a one-off kind of a new thing for me personally. But I think that one could be the deal that happens, and we'll see. It's a pretty cool concept. It's the first chapter. You're like, no blanking way, no blanking way, and yes, blanking way. It's exactly what's happening, and you're like, wow, this is interesting. So yeah,
Okay, I am fully intrigued. I'm
I'll
looking
send you
forward
an
to this
early
one.
copy.
Yeah, you better. I was like, that was my next part. It's like, well, if Adam gets to read it,
I got no problem. Well, I got my Adam, I got my person that works with Patterson, that my inroad for the James Patterson world that's kind of tied in, and now I've got my Hollywood Ama Adair. You can probably get it over to George Clooney, and we can work some kind of magic for
oh,
George to
beautiful.
yeah, I just want 8 figures. I'm not greedy. I mean,
Is
G
that
six
all?
fifties are
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah, not a problem. But speaking of, you definitely have a thing for that plane because it popped up a couple of times in Drexel.
Yeah, I want one. I mean, if you want one, why, you put it in the book. It's,
Yeah.
What's that concept of making it happen if
Oh,
you
you're manifesting it?
yeah, manifesting. There we go. I don't know why I couldn't think of that term off the top of my head, but yeah, I'm manifesting a G650, which I've never been on one. Never even been on a private plane. I don't think. No, I would have remembered that. Yeah. A lot of commercial planes.
Well, I mean, that's something that's interesting because you do put a lot of detail in your descriptions. You know,
Yeah.
if you hadn't have said that, I would have assumed that you have been on a G650 because you were very descriptive about, the leather seats and how
Yeah.
great it is.
I'm manifesting my nice seats and
Okay,
the
okay.
attractive stewardess that walks down to fill up my cup of ice water and yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know you like to travel, and you add that flavor into
Yeah.
your novels, so you get you have the descriptive details because you've been there. You're
Hmm.
replaying the images in your mind,
Yep.
and we see them with you. So I totally believed every single detail you had about the plane, every detail you had about certain events that I. How do I say this without giving anything away? You literally blow things up in places that it made me go, did that really happen? Just because of the level of detail. So,
I drop buildings on friends who, I mean, I do all kinds of fun stuff.
you're
Absolutely.
right. You're right. I guess it does make me wonder how many times you've imagined my death to be able to,
Lots.
be so
Lots.
be so descriptive about
Jake
it.
and
But
I got a double indemnity plan in case it ever happens. Heck yeah, I get a 20% cut. What in the world?
damn that
Kids
life
will be
insurance
taken
policy.
care of. I'll take
But
Aria to Shinedown shows. We're good.
oh, she'll forget I ever existed. Then that's all she needs. But
Yeah, yeah,
you,
we'll still remember. We'll have a
your
shrine for you in the house somewhere.
your stories really do come alive that way. So I have to applaud you for your research
Thank you.
capabilities because I mean, I'm assuming there are some things that you didn't actually experience firsthand, but
I
I
make a lot
believed
of
it.
shit up in my stories, Emma. I make a lot of stuff up. That's a storyteller. I don't know that I research anything, though.
You know what? That's the beauty of fiction. You can, but I applaud you because you make it real. Now, why Drexel?
Yeah, so good story behind that. So Drexel started as the second novel I ever wrote. So the first novel was called Vengeance. So I have Troy Evans and the Omega Group, and I had two examples of vengeance going on. So you had Troy that was on this path of vengeance for a noble reason, and there's another character in Vengeance that is kind of the bad guy on a path of vengeance for a not so noble reason, and they collide at one point. So while I was writing that, I had Troy an idea of who Troy was, and I knew certain things about him, but I didn't know what made him tick. And as I kind of got through the story and I was learning more, because I was 100% pantser at that stage in my career in 2014, as I kind of flushed him out more, I had to come up with a reason. Like, this guy needs a legitimate reason why he quit the FBI path and joined the army and then went special forces and then gets recruited to this shadowy Omega Group organization. So I kind of figured out what was the catalyst in his, younger years. That then I decided to Star Wars it and then write, in the wrong, spatially time, where then I wrote the second book, which was Troy, which is what Drexel became, but it was at the time called the Zachariah option, which the name has stayed in the book, because it was a document that pointed back to a Cold War era between us and the Soviets. And there was always this, and still have it now, which, I don't know that we've learned as a society or as definitely not as political figures, um, mutually assured destruction. Okay, Russia launches, we launch. Well, the concern back then by some senators was we're still going to have some kind of a country. They're not going to eliminate every state. There's going to be regions that you could have pockets of life, but now we're beyond third world nation. So maybe we should do something about that. And that's where the Zechariah option project and document comes into existence. As I kind of started editing it and started reading through it again last year, the end of the previous year, maybe it's been a while. I knew the Zachariah option didn't work as a title just because I've learned so much in the last 10, 11 years that I'm like, that's not a it's not bad verbiage, but it looked very bad on the cover. And most people can't pronounce Zachariah. I actually, when I was editing it, realized I spelt it two different ways many, many times. I either had ZA or ZE, and there was no rhyme or reason, so I forget how to spell it, and I was writing the damn story. So I said, I got to do something different. So I actually came up with a list of all these new titles last year. And I did. We talked offline. My son Bruce is 19 today. I just went and spent time with him at breakfast. Bought him a journal so he can write songs. One of the songs maybe was someone that's really cool and special. And I gave him the list and said, which one of these strikes your fancy? Probably was 15 or 20 names or titles and stuff on there. And he was like, Drexel. First thing, Drexel. I like that. And he didn't know what the story was about. And I told him why Drexel was on there. Oh, that's awesome. It's the town. It's where Troy lives. That's cool. So yeah, so I just that's why I said, you know what? I'll put it in as Drexel. It's nice, it's succinct, and it looks pretty good on the cover, I think.
No,
So
it does. But I'm curious how you came up with the location. Did you just throw a dart at the map and decide that's the spot?
I've always had an affinity for the West. Lived out there. I lived out in Colorado. I've lived in Washington State. I've traveled fairly extensively out west. There's a couple spots I haven't got to see, but I always had something for Montana, and that's originally where I was thinking I was going to set it. And then when I started looking at the topography of what I needed and everything, for some reason I had driven through Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, um, man, 2004 or so, and I really liked that area. It was real pretty. And I said, well, let's do it in Idaho. But because of what I'm going to do, and because I try to make things factually accurate, I don't have a spot that will work. So let's create my own town. So I literally took out a piece of paper. I still have it in one of my old notebooks, probably up in a bin somewhere in my closet. I actually drew out a map of the town, like the Burton State Park, which Burton State Park is named after my dad's middle name, Burton. So I had
Oh,
all
that's
these kind of
awesome.
things that I put in there, and then put that in the story when I wrote it, and then of course, 10 years later, it becomes a published novel, which is kind of wild. But yeah, I just wanted to create a fake area, a fake town, so I could do some crazy stuff in it. And I'm not bad mouthing Boise completely, so
Well,
which
hey,
is easy to do, but
there's an idea for when we hit like the 10-year anniversary of Drexel or something. You put out a new copy that has that map in there. I mean, they did it for Lord of the Rings. They did it with Game of Thrones. If you've got a map of your world, let's throw it in there.
then people are going to realize how dumb I am when they
Oh,
realize that my writing and my drawing skills is like maybe K4. I don't even know K kindergarten. It's kind
you
of
know
K4.
what? That makes it special. Either that, or you can do as you've said many times before. You hire out to an expert, like somebody like here's the rough draft. Make it pretty.
Make this look like what Tolkien did for his drawing of Middle Earth. Please, please make it look like it wasn't done by some, idiotic, moron. So maybe, yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe in 10 years, I'll just, you're gonna help me get some stuff on the digital stream here for stuff, and maybe our company's got enough bank one day that we just build a Drexel town, and then people can go tour the town, and they can see the gold mine, and they can see all the fun stuff. So
I am still planning world domination. It's just I have my different pathways to get there. No one will ever see it coming.
you need oligarchs that are going to help you, help you protect your trillions of dollars so no one knows how rich you are. So, hey, I'm available. Buy corporate America. I'll leave tomorrow because they'll dump me tomorrow if they feel it's necessary. So,
I'll put
hey, I'm there.
you're on the short list. You're good.
Thank you.
But that does bring up you. I don't know how much you want to go into this, but you introduced quite the villain in Drexel, and I really was getting like Ian Fleming vibes. Like this is Spectre. This is Blofeld. I'm feeling that classic villain, like super villain vibes from this dude. Are we going to see him again?
Well, he doesn't die at the end, so maybe.
I was like, it really felt like you were setting up like a great nemesis story. I mean, because it is vengeance, like you said, it's
So
vengeance on both sides for
yeah,
different
so I think I
reasons.
was at the time back when I wrote it, yes, because I had like 7 books planned out, and I didn't have him in particularly. I didn't have the details of where I'd put him in, but I wanted to leave it open-ended so that it could circle back. And I've thought about circling back with Troy and the Omega Group, basically come full circle moment. I just didn't get there yet in the planning, and then the Body Man kind of threw me for a loop for a good way. But that coming in and that series kind of taking over and being the first thing published kind of made me have to kind of diversify of how am I going to do these things and where am I going to put my priorities, which has the longer lifespan. Like I believe in the Omega Group series and it's a passion project for me to put out, but the Body Man series does get more eyes on it. So you kind of do have to do I indefinitely keep doing 2 books a year? Can I indefinitely keep doing 2 books a year in 2 different series? I don't know. I can currently because I wrote enough before I became published that I can pilfer from old stuff and fix it. And like, okay, I had this concept down. That's a strong concept, but I need to make it better. I can do that. If I go through all the previous stuff I wrote and I run out, then it's all, you got to write 2 full-length novels a year. That's doable. I know plenty of people that do that, but I'd have to be a lot more disciplined. And that might be easier as the kids got older. Bruce is off to college now. I don't see him as much. My daughter in 3.5 years might be following suit if she goes off to college. So then I wouldn't have no excuse. Right now, I'm like, I don't know if I can write 2 full-length novels and short stories and travel and, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I mean, you're a victim of your own.
Podcasts.
You're the
So.
victim of your own success, but you also are the master of your own destiny. So
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
I
None
would
of that's a
just
complaint. None of that. I always say that. Look, I'm not complaining. I'm choosing to do everything I am doing in life, and I'm blessed to do it. But I don't know that it's all sustainable long term.
And that's fair. If you want to space things out, I applaud. However, you already said you were going to do something with the Jackal, but if I don't get something that is Charlie, an Omega group, I will find you.
I
It's like
know.
that you are not allowed to not do that at some point. I will give you free range as the creative genius behind the Omega group to have it happen eventually, but that has to happen.
That'll
It's
be my chick book that I do. That's all these badass chick, but that's just all. But like, if there's a dude there, he just gets his butt kicked. That's all it is.
that
That's on
works
the
for me.
docket. That's on the docket. Yeah, and Charlie was a surprise to me because I didn't really when I first wrote that, it was part of it wasn't a short story. It was a novella, is what Babylon Will Rise originally. It was a totally different title as well. Charlie was more of a minor character, and as I started to go through that and start developing it better and breaking things out, the more I realized. And she had a different name at the time too. It wasn't Charlie. Problem is I had already then started the Body Man series, and I had forgot about some of the stuff I wrote. So I published a book with the character's name Sam Samantha. Well, Sam Samantha can't be with the Omega Group too. It gets too confusing. So then that I think I might have talked about that with you previously. That was kind of a dilemma of like, what do I rename her for the Omega Group book? I'm like, I don't know. And when I came to Charlie, that's when I started kind of beefing her up and talking more about how she became who she was, which wasn't in the first drafts of the novella. Yeah, that's when I realized, okay, at some point Charlie will, come to life in a different way with a novel about more of her and her team and stuff.
Well, as she should. But I mean that goes back to what I was saying earlier about how good you are with your ensembles. Because I don't think there's been a book yet that I haven't really, really enjoyed at least one of what would be the supporting cast
Yeah.
and wanted to know more about. So I mean there's brilliance in that just because, that gives you the avenue to pursue all kinds of different storylines from the
Hmm.
same world, but again, you wouldn't be able to do that if you hadn't taken this on your own. So I have to
Yeah.
applaud you for running with where the story needs to be, not what somebody else predictates it should do.
Again, a lot of that is stepping kind of on that path that the Giants created. So there, and I won't state who, but there's a couple of them that have written a little bit ensembles. But sometimes what I found with the ensembles is I like the ensemble people more than the main protagonist. So I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have a protagonist that people are like, what a dick. I don't want to read that character, which there's a couple of them, couple series out there that I've started to read that I'm like, I'm not reading the series anymore. I don't like the protagonist. I like the such and such character. So it's kind of been in my head though of like, don't do that. Or don't give people a reason to not like that. So try to come up with a really cool, and not every character is going to relate. I got so many responses from the Body Man series. When the first book came out, that they were like, we want Eli and Kat. What do you got more for Eli and Kat? They actually will be book 5 in the Body Man series. That one's already started and planned high level. Not a lot has been written in it, but I did start the first few chapters like 3 years ago, I think. But that's an Eli and Kat story. So again, I kind of like the pattern for the Body Man to like one book's about kind of more the Body Man, and the next one goes to one of the ensemble characters. Then we're back to the Body Man role more, and then we're back to the ensemble. And the Body Man will always be in all of them, or the role will be in all of them, but I don't want it to always get the spotlight.
I
And that's
caught
to me
that.
just that's
The
selfish.
role will be in there. I caught
Yeah,
that. You thought you were
yeah.
going to
I
slide
mean,
that by me.
right. He might die at some point. I mean, you gotta be prepared for death, you know?
No, no, no. But I understand what you're saying. Game of Thrones broke the mold for everybody. Once Ned Stark died. I mean, that's not a spoiler anymore. Sorry if it is, but that blew everybody's mind, and it's just the way things are now.
I'll
Nobody's
do a
safe.
Star Wars homage for you, and if Nick ever kicks the bucket, I'll make him a little fuzzy green thing in the corner that's coming up and saying, Luke, you must not get into that limousine with the president. And he'll just be the ghost of the body man past or something. We'll have a little fun with him. So
Well, regardless of what story you choose, or what direction you go, you do have it's clear that you have an appreciation and respect towards, the people who put themselves in harm's way. So your
absolutely.
first responders, the people that, run towards the sounds of bullets. And
Mhm.
you dedicated Drexel to the people who responded post 9/11.
Yes. Yeah, I was a little worried when I originally wrote this in 2015, and I didn't know that I'd ever see the light of day because bringing in the Trade Center, even though I'm not really bringing in building one and two, but it's a central plot point to the early part is building seven. And I didn't know if I'd even like be able to get it published because I was thinking traditional at the time. It's like they might just like really give me a hard time for saying you're cheapening or you're trying to make money off victims. And it's like that's not the case. What gave me a little bit more peace the last couple of years is I've started to read books and notice books that talk about 9/11 and talk about aspects of it. And I'm like, okay, I think we're in a spot now, so many years out, that you can tell a story that has a piece in there that's also not cheapening what happened, and you're not just trying to do it for a buck, but you're doing it for Troy. I needed something to happen that was not just his car broke down and I'm pissed, I'm going to join the army. I needed something cataclysmic to happen that would alter his life. And for so many of us, especially in our age, 9/11 was that, that was the JFK moment for other generations, and that was the Pearl Harbor bombing for other generations. 9/11 became our moment of like, okay, we're not as protected as we thought. This isn't, we're not. And that moment of like unity that we had in the country that was prolonged felt great. For all the tragedy that happened, all the loss that happened, for those of us that were there and realized, yeah, we can get along. And I think we've lost that. We're back in a spot now where elephant hates donkey, donkey hates elephant. It doesn't even matter what they believe anymore. They just hate the other side. And it's like, man, we're in a fractured spot where, and I don't want another 9/11 to happen, but something's got to happen to either get us back together or that splinter is going to become a crack that's not going to be filled. And then not taking this too seriously, but I think as a society, we're quickly going to that spot. So, and that's kind of why for me, books are that like, their way of ignoring reality in a way of just getting away, and they're a way of just kind of telling a fun story and putting some truth in it and some not truth in it, but at the end of the day finding a joy that you don't always find if you turn on the news or you pay attention to what dumbass politician A said and dumbass politician B on the other side disagreed with. And it's like, I think you're both wrong. Can you both be wrong? I think you're both wrong.
Just mute them all. They don't know what they're talking about.
I know.
But
We're
in the
gonna run. When do we run? Are we running in 20? When's the next one? 2028? We're gonna do it?
we'll talk offline. I have so many theories about this, but you know, when I read that, so we're in a world right now that there are adults, functioning adults that didn't live through 9/11. So
Yeah.
for them, it's the things that they've only read about. They've
Right.
only maybe seen videos or documentaries on. But
I
for
have one of those. He's 19 and he's seen videos of it, but he was, it was 6 years after he was born.
God, I swear he just turned 18 yesterday. But I mean, these type of books, even though it is fiction, it really does evoke a lot of the same emotions. Because I fully admit, reading the sequences that happen around 9/11 in the book put me back in some of the feels that I had witnessing all that happen, and
Yeah,
it was a little difficult for me to read just because that is something that's so ingrained to me. I
sure.
was one of those people that went and joined the military
Right.
because of 9/11. So
Yep.
Troy's reactions, his dad's reactions, how the world responded, sitting around and watching the TV and being glued to it, and all those thoughts and feelings that manifest because of it. You did a very good job of capturing
Thank you.
them, but I think that also helps anybody who did not live through that understand it a little differently, because it's one
Yeah.
thing to see the images and know it was bad and know it was horrible, but the thing that books can do and fiction can do is evoke the emotion, and I think
Mhm.
you crushed it in that
Thank you.
regard.
Yeah, so I was actually I was working for an insurance company in Greenville, South Carolina on 9/11. I was actually in a Six Sigma class all that morning. And we didn't get out of the class, and I don't remember the times now. We didn't get out of the class till after 10 o'clock because everything was kind of almost done. We came out of the class and went back to, I was working in a financial analyst for an IT department. I was the only financial analyst. I get back to my cube and like everyone's like huddling around, talking and whispering. And it's like a funeral almost. And I'm like, go up to, I forget who I went up to, but I'm like, what's going on? They're like, what do you mean, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, I just got out of a class for the last 3 hours. Like, who's dead? What's up? And they're like, Trade Center's destroyed, and I'm like, the World Trade Center? Like, yeah, like that's not funny. It's like it's not a joke. I go back to my desk. I can't get back then the internet was sorry kids. It was a little slower back then. Sometimes we had AOL and dial up. It seemed like even in 2001. Um, I can't get the internet to work. And so I keep hitting refresh on my Internet Explorer to like refresh the page. And what finally comes up is the Drudge Report. And I'm not exaggerating this. It came up like that. You just start seeing the word Drudge Report under that. And under that picture, and I remember it vividly like it was yesterday, was a picture of the World Trade Centers when the plane was hitting and the explosion happening. And it said World Trade Center complex destroyed. And I was just like, what in the world? So we ended up going out to the cafeteria where there's a TV and there's like 100 people all gathered around this TV, watched for a while, thinking this is I'm gonna wake up in a few hours and I'm back home and I gotta go to work. My alarm went off. Went back to the our office space and my manager's like, "Go home. No one's gonna work. We don't know if we're getting attacked again." And it was one of those moments that I can't believe 25 this year will be 25 years since it happened, which is amazing. But it was one of those moments that just changed everything. And so yeah, when I was getting to that point of writing this story and Troy's emotions and all that, I just went back to that well of what was in my brain of like, what did you feel? What did you feel about the country, the patriotism? Did you want to go join? And like, I know people that joined the military, like you were saying, that said, screw this, I'm joining the military and I'm going to kill those people. I'm going to kill all of them. That was their thought process. They were so angry at the time. So, yeah, I tried to really draw off that to give Troy that depth I needed for him of why would you alter your life so dramatically? It had to be something really cataclysmic.
Yeah, and you did it really well. But like I said, it was difficult to read, and I think that's always going to be a bit of a trigger point. So I understand the sensitivity to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also thought that was a very classy move to make it your dedication. So
Yeah,
bravo,
at
sir.
that point when I got to the dedication spot, I'm like, I can't dedicate this to my kids. I can't dedicate to my mom. Or I thought of dedicating it maybe to like some veterans or whatever. I did that for Babylon Will Rise. I dedicated it to my friend Andrew, who's my college roommate, who joined. He joined before 9/11, but he literally spent his full career and he was SF. He's where I got a lot of the flags and other stuff behind me were things that he got me. I have a box of flags. He got me in the Middle East in my room. But he spent the better part of 20 years in endless wars. Deployed. I'd see him once every 2 or 3 years and he'd show me a bunch of pictures and I'd be like, is that the noose I think it is? And he'd be like, you didn't see that noose? And I saw these kind of crazy things through his lens, through his eyes. So yeah, when I got part last year of finished editing, it's like, how do I dedicate this? It's like, this is a no-brainer. I've got to do this for the 9/11 folks. So
Yeah, and he also the people nobody ever thinks about. Your mind goes to the troops as
yeah.
as it should, but
Well, especially the people that went to the site.
there's a lot more than that. Yep.
Yeah, and I met someone. I never met him actually. I interacted with a first responder who ended up getting cancer. And we were that first year I was going to the Thriller Fest. I was actually going to meet him for dinner, and he died I think in March. So he died several months before. Well, his brother saw one of the posts I put about it, and his brother said, "I'm going to take you to dinner." So his brother and his best friend took me to dinner when I went to New York, and we've met a couple times for dinner. And they ended up becoming characters in Breach of Trust, which was kind of funny. Kind of, I'd reached out to them and said, "Hey, I want to include you guys, give you a cameo." And of course, they go, "Look, make us Playboy, billionaires and blah blah blah." I got a different idea for it. I told them what I was thinking. It was going to be small, and as I started again, I was a pantser. As I started writing, I'm like, I'm gonna make these characters a lot. And one of them, Peter Kasha, was what the character became, which was not. It was his name was his alias was Kasha, so I was able to put that in, and that was one of the characters that people actually reached out to me and said, the Kasha guy, kind of a bad guy, but I wanted him to live. I didn't want him to die. I was kind of rooting for him, even though he didn't do some great things. So
And
again, I
that's
think we've
how
had
you
that.
know you wrote a good
Yeah,
character.
that's we've had that conversation probably offline is when you can write someone who's bad and make them endearing to people, then you kind of hit on the key thing, the humanity between all of us. So it's like with Troy and his dad. I wanted a strong relationship. One thing that was funny, and I don't think I've told you this, I've mentioned on one other podcast. Several years ago, after my divorce and all that stuff going on, my son started calling me Pops. Like one day, I was like, "Why you call me Pops?" For whatever reason, my brain went to like a derogatory, like pops, like just not that dad is means anymore. Honestly, you're still getting a generic term that's not your real name either. So there's 4 billion dads out there, however many there are. But I kind of did take it a couple times. I even said, like, "Don't call me pops. Find a different term for me." But then my daughter picked it up, so I started becoming pops, and I accepted it. I made peace with it. The kids want to call me that. What's funny, and this is a little thing with Drexel that's ironic. As I started my read through for Drexel, what did I find? But Troy called Matt pops.
Pops.
So I wrote that when Bruce was 7 or 8 years old. Long before, and he didn't start calling me Pops till he was like 15 or whatever. Long before he even started calling me, I was having my hero character call his dad Pops. And I had this moment of editing him like, dude, you kind of almost created that, didn't you? I said, why are you upset? Why were you upset by that? And so now, like, now it's a term of endearment. A pops is not. I won't want to be like a pop or a poppy if I ever have grandkids. I'm gonna create my own name for that. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
pops is a good thing though, and it was in Drexel, which is kind of like, okay, this is kind of cool.
Well, that was one of the central things was that relationship between Troy and his dad, and we get just as much of Matt as we do of Troy, and
Yeah,
you really get an understanding about that bond. So
yeah.
I did find myself wondering if Bruce had some sort of influence in that bond between the two of them, because you can feel it off the page.
Yeah. Well, I think, as a writer yourself, you're putting a piece of yourself in a story, even if you're fictionalizing it. And I think that interaction with Troy and Matt, I think was me fictionalizing what kind of relationship I would want with my son. Just like I want someone that he can come to. You screw up, you can come to me. You got something exciting happen, you can come to me. I don't want that adversarial, which you see sometimes where, the dad's the authoritarian, not dads aren't always loving. Like I know I'm fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with people much older than me when I was younger, and common stories were that these men would say, "My dad never hugged me. My dad never said I love you," and not like that wasn't uncommon to hear in generations from say the 30s, 40s, 50s, where the dads they were just stoic. They were man's man. Yeah, you can be a tough son of a gun and still give your kid a kiss and a hug and say love you. And so I wanted that relationship with Matt and Troy because I wanted a kind of a model of what, again, I think what I wanted with my own son. So
Well, that's definitely a model everybody should aspire to because it's a great one and it definitely gets you all in the feels as you're going through the adventure that they have. But to kind of close everything up, I
yeah.
mean, you ended with you know Troy
Hmm.
becoming part of the Omega Group because everybody knows this is an origin story, so he
Yep.
gets that invite. I gotta ask, like, how did he get singled out by the colonel? It's like because there's this kind of gap where he's been really just running and gunning for a very long time, and then magically the colonel shows up and says, "Hey, why don't you come work for me?" It's like, how did he get the nod? Because that it was like that wasn't in the book. You left
Wasn't
me
in the book.
hanging.
I know. Well, that's what we got future books to talk about. What was the mystery that caught Troy's attention to the Colonel? William saw something or he heard something. So yeah, I can't give that one away yet. Sorry.
Oh, come on!
I
All
can't.
right, I will accept that you will answer my questions in a future book. That is an acceptable answer.
You in a few years you might know more. So
Okay.
we'll see what the time frame is on that. Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see where I go. I have an idea of where the Omega Group next book will be, which might come out next year. Could come out in 2027. It's not an origin story, but it's back into the modern. I don't know. I mean, it's something I wrote a while ago that I've gone through, but I need to really go through with a fine-tooth comb, and we'll see if I can find the time this year. If not, the other projects might be the ones coming out before that. But the character's here to stay. The series is here to stay, even if it's a 2 year gap at some point or whatever. I don't want to ever put too much pressure on myself that I feel like I have to put something out, and then I put something out that's mediocre to put it out. I like that idea that I can kind of have that creative control as well, but also I don't have a publisher saying deliver your manuscript by June
Or else,
1st or
yeah.
you're out of contract or whatever. Um, yeah, I don't think I want that. I put enough pressure on myself. I don't want some suit telling me when I've got to finish a book or whatever. So I kind of can, and it doesn't give me, that's not an excuse to then slack off because I don't think I'm slacking off, but it allows me to kind of put things together the way I want to.
No, and I respect that, completely understand that. And so for everybody listening, Drexel is out. It is out now. And if you haven't already gotten a copy, you are wrong. Snag it. You will not regret it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Do you have any parting words for everybody about the awesomeness that is Drexel or anything else going on in the world of Eric P. Bishop?
I put a social media post about the other day, like basically don't take my word for it. I believe in the project. I think it's fantastic. I'm an author, and if I put a book out and I really thought it was, not fantastic, then I really shouldn't have put it out. So me liking it, yeah, I'm a good guy. You can take my word for it, but don't take my word for it. Go read the reviews and see what other people, because at the end of the day, I write stories for myself, stories, but I want people to connect with them. I don't write a story and go, I hope people hate these SOBs. No, I want people to be like, that's a cool character. Why did you kill that character off? Or, hey, when's Charlie coming? Why'd you do that with Sam? Whatever it might be. I love the fact that people are like that. And those are the reviews that I think matter. And I'm not saying that Kirkus and all these other reviews, but there are people that pay for reviews and they get a glowing review. And the reviewer really might have liked that book, but they're also paid a bunch of money. They're probably going to have to like the book. Versus you go to Amazon and you read someone's reviews, good or bad, there's a high probability that that person bought that book unless they got a free NetGalley copy or whatever. And if they liked it and if they point out things they liked, that's probably an authentic reaction. So read those. And if they're negative, yeah, person's a jerk, but they have the right to be a jerk and not like my story. I always joke and say the same thing. Hey, if you didn't like that one, buy the next one. Or hey, buy another copy of that one and give it to a friend and see if they like it better. Buy a dozen copies. I have a kid in college, come on.
Well, I mean, isn't that the scientific method? You do it once, how do you know you really don't like it unless you do it again to see if you get the same result? So, I mean,
If you
you
buy the
got to at
ebook,
least at least
buy
do
the
two.
paperback and hardcover too, because maybe you'll like the hardcover more than the paperback or the ebook. Three books, math tells me is always better than one.
You're right. Yeah, always better. More books is always better.
Always better, but no. So yeah, Drexel's out. Ebook, paperback, hardcover on Amazon. I know some people despise Amazon, and I get it. I mean, from an author perspective, I can offer the books at the best price, which also gives me the best bang for the buck. Or I can offer it through other resources like through Ingram Spark, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, but they're going to be priced higher, and I'm still probably going to make less. But you can go on to those other online retailers if you want the paperback. If you want the ebook, you're going to have to go through Amazon because I do Kindle Select, and that's been a really good program for me. It just gets it's people that pay a monthly subscription fee, they don't want to buy books. We just want to go to this program. If we can read 5 pages, if we don't like the book, we don't have to read anymore. We didn't pay, I mean, publishers nowadays, ebooks are 14.99 when they come out, which is great.
That blows my
The
mind.
bigger publishers, obviously not the small indie presses typically, but you almost feel obligated when you pay 14.99. I better read this book because I just spent
I just
even
spent
more
a
than
bunch of
coffee
money
at
on it.
Starbucks. But a Kindle Unlimited, when they're on that Kindle program, Man, you read 2 pages and be like, this sucks. Hey, just stop reading it and go to the next one because you're paying a monthly subscription. So I've been very blessed with the amount of readers that have gone through that. And, some of those people might also then buy a copy if they really enjoyed it. And if they didn't, though, at least they got to read it and got to see what's there. So
No, and I'm certain they will be back from work because if they aren't, they might want to check their imagination qualities.
thank you.
But anyway, Eric, thank you so much for letting me steal your show again. And I did love Drexel, and I'm looking forward to the next installment of the Omega Group. Of course, I'm going to read The Body Man, but I'm kind of really on the Omega Group thing right now, so I might be hounding you.
Well, thank you for taking over my show. Thank you for the great questions. And I know beyond a doubt that if I get hit by a bus, John Guarnieri's calling you and saying, "Hey, we got an opening. What do you can you deliver an episode like a couple times a month?" That's all that idiot was doing. So
You're not allowed to go anywhere. Not allowed.
I'll try
I
to
forbid
stay.
it.
I like staying. I like life. Thank you, Emma.
No, thank you so much. Talk again soon.
Sounds good.